Welcome to part 3 of chapter 3. In this part, we will talk about activities, deliverables, and best practices within each of the process groups. This part of the chapter is more of a high level and I guess disorganized overview of all those activities, deliverables, and best practices because the entire course is devoted to understanding activities, deliverables, and best practices in each of the project management process groups. So we cannot have an overview of all the activities, all the deliverables, and all the best practices within the confines of one class. So this is really to give you a taste of what this class is largely about, and also what kind of deliverables you should be able to produce as a part of your individual or group project. So this is like not even an overview, but like a sampling of different process groups rather than a comprehensive overview. Now, you probably remember that the first process group is related to initiation, to project initiation, when the project is formally started. But before a project is formally started, you need to do some groundwork in relation to project initiation. In other words, there needs to be some activities that fall under pre-initiation phase or process group, meaning before a project is formally started or initiated, you need to do some background work. Now, that background work is often performed by senior managers. So they perform such pre-initiation tasks as determining the scope, time, and cost constraints for the project. What is the total budget that they have available? What is the latest date when this project needs to be delivered? Identifying or appointing the project sponsor, meaning the senior executive who will be in charge of this project, who will be providing the selected project manager with all the needed resources, and also political support within the organization. Then the project manager needs to be selected before a project is formally initiated. Then maybe a business case should be developed, and there are some examples of a business case in your textbook, and there are also templates available. Also, a senior manager, preferably the one who is appointed as the project champion, needs to meet with the project manager to review the processes and expectations for managing the project, meaning to explain the project manager how projects are typically carried out within this organization. And then at this phase, at this stage, a senior manager can also determine if the project should be divided into two or more smaller projects under the umbrella of one single program. Because if they determine by communicating with the project manager that the goals of the project are too broad or too resource consuming, then they should consider breaking it down to several projects and finding several other project managers to get things done. So once pre-initiation is completed, the project goes into the initiation phase, meaning the phase that formally recognizes and starts a new project. Now, the main goal is to formally select and staff the project. Those are the main activities happening in that stage. So some of the initiating processes involve developing a project charter. It's like a high-level summary of the project, and also a document that says that the project is formally conceived. So the project charter is one of the key outputs, and also identifying stakeholders, especially stakeholders that comprise the project team. Now, stakeholders can be recorded in the form of this so-called Stakeholder Register. So here we have names, positions of various stakeholders that are involved with a particular project. Also, we have their classification. Internal means they are the team members, the project team members, meaning they are working on the project itself. External means that they are important stakeholders. They're somehow involved with the project. They're influencing the project, or the project team is relying on them to get things done, but they're not a formal part of the project team. And then we have project role classification, sponsor, manager, team member, advisor, and then contact information. Once you identify stakeholders during the initiation phase, you can also create the so-called stakeholder management strategy document. So here, not only you have your stakeholders listed, but you also come up with potential management strategy. For example, if somebody's level of influence within the organization is high, but their level of interest is low, meaning this particular stakeholder is not intimately involved in the project, then you may say something like this: well, this is how we're going to manage our relationship with this stakeholder. We're going to send this stakeholder monthly updates, and we're not going to involve the stakeholder in anything else, so that this stakeholder is in the loop, because giving her influence, she may either support or stand in the way of our project. At the same time, giving the low level of interest, this person cannot be directly involved with the project, so we'll just send some monthly updates, maybe milestone reports. It's also considered to be a good practice to have the so-called kickoff meeting during the initiation stage. This is where everybody gets together and signs the project charter and overall starts to talk about how they're going to proceed with this project. So here we have an example of a kickoff meeting agenda document, something that should be distributed to all the relevant stakeholders prior to the kickoff meeting itself. So I suggest you pause here for a minute and just read about, read all those sections and agenda items of a kickoff meeting document. Now, project planning is a very important phase because the more time you spend planning, the better the better your plan is in terms of granularity and also realism. The less time you will spend during execution phase, and the less time you spend during execution phase, the less resources you will consume. So the main purpose of project planning is to guide execution. Every knowledge area includes planning information. In other words, to be a good planner, you need to have knowledge and experience in all process groups of a project. Now, some of the key outputs included under the umbrella of a project plan include a team contract where you as a team agree how you will proceed with teamwork, how you will interact, how will you communicate, how you will punish or somehow discipline team members that are not productive. Also, you need to come up with a project scope statement, which is a document that clearly specifies what you agree to do, what needs to be done as a part of this project, a work breakdown structure, a summary of steps or activities that you need to carry out to get from the concept stage to the closing stage. In other words, what are the things that you need to do to get this project done? Okay, a breakdown of specific steps. A project schedule may be in the form of a Gantt chart with all the dependencies and resources entered, and maybe a list of prioritized risk. It's a part of risk register. So basically, at the early stage, you brainstorm about all the things that can go wrong with your project, and later on, you will think about, plans B, meaning like what kind of response you will have if any of those risks that you identified previously actually materializes. So here we have an example of a Gantt chart generated by Microsoft Project. In Microsoft Project, once you create a work breakdown structure and you enter all the details, including dates, for each of the tasks, then it's very easy to generate a Gantt chart or a network diagram. And here you see an example of a document that contains a list of prioritized risks. So this is something that is carried out during the planning stage. Okay, project execution usually takes the most time and resources because this is when you actually go about implementing the project. This is where project managers must use their leadership skills to handle the many challenges that occur during project execution. You probably know that planning is more like theory. It's one thing, you can be great at planning, but it's really execution that makes a project successful or on the contrary leads to the failure of a project. So execution is probably the most important phase of all. That's where the most resources are consumed. That's where you need to use real knowledge and skills to make things work in real life as opposed to just imagining and dreaming about things as a part of the planning stage. Many processes and deliverables are related to execution. Milestone report is one of the most important deliverables. It basically tells all the stakeholders whether you achieved a particular date and when you achieve a particular important milestone. A milestone, it's not necessarily a specific task. It can be like a combination of specific tasks. For example, completing work breakdown structure is an important milestone, and it was accomplished in May 31st. So milestones basically tell you whether your project tell you and other stakeholders whether your project is on track or is likely to be delayed, because none of those milestones can be skipped. And if one milestone is delayed, it means all other milestones will be delayed and the entire project will be delayed. Project monitoring and controlling is another important phase. It involves measuring progress towards project objectives, monitoring deviations from the plan, and also taking corrective actions if there are some undesirable deviations. It affects all process groups and occurs during all phases of the project lifecycle, something that we mentioned before. Outputs of controlling and monitoring include performance reports, change requests if something needs to be changed in original plans, and also updates to various plans. So monitoring and controlling is about supervising the entire project and making reasonable adjustments to the initial agreed upon plans, budgets, timelines, and cost estimates. Project closing is another important phase. It involves gaining stakeholder and customer acceptance of the final products and service, meaning the product or service is formally delivered, and all the relevant users or stakeholders, they need to sign off saying, yeah, we accept this product, we believe that the product was delivered. But even if a project is not completed, meaning a final product or service was not delivered, you as a project manager, you also need to formally close the project to learn from past mistakes. Something that will help you to learn from past mistakes are outputs such as project archives, lessons learned, part of organizational process assets, meaning once you complete a project or fail to complete a project, you may still do update to policies, manuals, so that people know how to work in their jobs, giving the new, let's say, information system. Most projects also, and this can be very valuable. I remember in my work, I initiated so many projects without realizing that projects similar to mine were undertaken in the past. And unfortunately, one of those projects that I undertook, it was not only they tried to do, my organization tried to do it in the past, it also failed, and my project failed for the same reason. Because I don't want to start dwelling on details about the project, but all I'm saying here is that you need to have past records to learn from the past, so that you don't repeat the same mistakes over and over again. Some or most projects also include a final report and presentation to the sponsor senior management to explain what has been done, what went wrong, what was delivered, what was not delivered. A lot of the times the closing phase is skipped by consultants, and this has to do with their compensation structure, because once you complete a project, once a consultant completes a project, he or she moves to another project, so they don't want to keep that project manager or consultant for a long time to formally close it, because it means you need to pay money to this consultant. But nevertheless, closing is important. I think the most important part of closing is learning from your past success and past failures. If you never learn, you never improve as an individual, as a project manager, as an organization. So maybe project closing should be included formally included in a contract that is used to outline or guide work of a particular project manager or consultant. So this completes part 3 of chapter 3. Thank you for listening.